may we have the strength and skill to study together the realm of spirit, these love poems from God, these gifts from the divine. Om, Amen. And so,
I will read this. Your hair, your face. Can you all hear me, Brother Shankara?
yes,
Yeah, good. Just want to make sure I'm very far away from the computer a little bit. What is it you want to change? Your hair, your face, your body? Why? For God is in love with all those things, and he might weep when they are gone. Your hair, your face. What is it you want to change? Your hair, your face, your body? Why? For God is in love with all those things, and he might weep when they are gone. So beautiful.
yes. You remember the lines from My Funny Valentine?
Yes.
Don't change a hair for me, not if you care for me.
It's funny. I thought of that same song last week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the divine speaking through that My Funny Valentine lyricist. I didn't get the tune exactly right. It was somewhere in that neighborhood, but don't change a hair for me, not if you care for me.
Exactly. I like that beautiful song. Oh, this is just God wants us to love just the way we are. That's what I'm connecting to.
Well, as someone pointed out last week, this would do away with the entire cosmetic surgery industry.
Exactly.
And I don't want to get in anybody's face about their livelihood. But on the other hand, I certainly do understand the meaning of this poem.
That's true. Thank you, Brother Shankara.
Anybody else got anything to say about it?
Yes, I think I like this poem a lot because I actually had the thought, like today or yesterday, somebody had said something to me about how life isn't perfect, and then I had done some thought about it, and I realized that maybe life is perfect, but we only think it's not perfect through our own ignorance.
Well, that's what so many of these poets tell us. We're just not seeing the perfection behind the appearance. But until we see it, we can't pretend to see it. We can't pretend that, So we have this strange dilemma of seeing imperfection, but somehow knowing within ourselves that there's, and virtually every one of these poets has a poem here in which they question God about the imperfection. Certainly, St. Catherine of Siena does. It's one of her sermon poems. Anyone got anything else about this particular poem? Good evening, Katrina. Namaste. Hello, Bart.
If nobody has anything to say, I just want to make one comment, Brother Shankara.
Yes.
This implies so much, like first we have to love ourselves the way we are so we could love the world around us.
Yes.
In the world. If we cannot love ourselves, then we just won't be able to share the love with anybody.
Exactly. No, we must be able to love ourselves and love ourselves as we are, with all the pluses and minuses.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for bringing it up. I'm sorry, I thought that was Bart, but it's Liam.
Yeah, I have something kind of, I guess not so much to add, but I mean, maybe I'm throwing a little bit of a wrench into the equation here, but they, I was just reading Adi Shankaracharya's work on non-dualism and most Ashtavakra Gita. I don't know if everyone's familiar with the Ashtavakra Gita, but what they say is that you are not the body fundamentally, and that it's all delusion when you are the body. So I guess that's another way of saying that it's okay. I just wanted to add that point. I've just been very thinking about that a lot.
Well, this is the highest viewpoint. But once again, that is something that we can hold in our minds. But do most of us experience that? When people would come to Sri Ramakrishna with this particular thing, and they would say those things, particularly if they would say them self-righteously and self-importantly, he would literally give them a fierce pinch. And they would, of course, say, ouch! And he said, oh, I thought you told me this was all unreal.
Very true. Beautifully said, Brother Shankara.
So is this Anshu? Is that who that is?
Yes, it is.
Oh, very good. I'm glad you're with us, Anshu. So the knowledge that we are not the body comes from coming to have a personal experience of the spirit that is the truth of our being. But until we have that very convincing experience, then it very much seems that we are the body with all of its pluses and minuses. And so if you look at this poem about your hair, your face, from a non-dual point of view, you'll see that's why God would weep. Because, we're thinking of ourselves as something, as the body, and that is something that needs to be changed. And this says God is in love with all those things. What things? The things that she or he made and is one with. So even this can be looked at from that non-dual perspective. Good evening, Swayam. So good you're with us.
Good evening, Hari Om, Brother Shankara. Namaste, everybody.
Hari Om, Hari Om. Okay, there's the next poem. If there's nothing else for anyone to say about the one we were just talking about. There's Bart. Good.
Hello, namaste, everyone.
Namaste, namaste.
Uh,
Okay. Sharda, would you like to read Only If You Join Me?
What's all that noise?
Oh, I don't know. Somebody's clattering pans in the kitchen.
Okay. Okay. Only if you join me. One more song tonight. Okay. But only if you join me. Once, when I was sad, I said to a kind old priest, have you learned any secrets to unburden the heart? And he responded, hum favorite melody.
Hang on just a minute. Shubra, we're having a class in here. Could you please stop that? Okay, stop. Would you start again, please?
Okay.
Sharda?
Only if you join me. One more song tonight. Okay. But only if you join me. Once, when I was sad, I said to a kind old priest, "Have you learned any secrets to unburden the heart?" And he responded, "Hum a favorite melody. Wine will always rise to the top of oil."
And so-
Only,
yeah, please do read it again.
only if you join me. One more song tonight, okay, but only if you join me. Once, when I was sad, I said to a kind old priest, "Have you learned any secrets to unburden the heart?" And he responded, "Hum a favorite melody. Wine will always rise to the top of oil." And I have to say something about this.
Please.
I just recently discovered that humming as opposed to singing or any other sort of vocalization, humming stimulates the vagus nerve and can help lift your mood.
Wow.
And you know how most of us have known someone or know someone or are someone who hums a lot. I do that. I sing a lot in public and in the grocery store. But I do hum a lot, and sometimes it is to sort of soothe myself. It's a self-soothing sort of behavior. And, you know, you think of people who hum a lot or whistle a lot as being happy. Well, they may be happier than people who don't because of what it does to our mood and our nervous system.
Isn't that a sweet discovery?
So, yeah, and so this poem, you know, I have to agree with it anyway. I think it's interesting. The first part, one, you know, someone saying, "Oh, play another song," you know, which, you know, as a performer, I've heard that before. And okay, but if you'll sing with me is something that I've actually done, and a lot of performers actually do. Anyway, so.
Well, I think that it is interesting that this has at its heart the solution is hum a favorite melody. Hum it, not sing it. Hum it. And then, of course, this lovely metaphor, wine will always rise to the top of oil. So anything else about this?
Brother Shankara,
Yes, dear.
first of all, this is the perfect poem for Cindy to read, being that she writes and sings. And
Yes.
I agree with everything she said. Um, Humming in Indian Bollywood movies, a lot of the songs, they have the humming somewhere in there in the beginning or the end, or and also the bhajans, the simple bhajans where we sing together, like the lead person sings and the rest of us join.
Mm-hmm.
It's so much more devotional than just listening to a accomplished singer do the bhajan all by himself or herself.
Oh, heavens, yes. I mean, you
So
get something from that, but you don't get what you get when you sing yourself.
right. And I mean, I just Hare Ram, Hare Krishna in any kind of tune you sing, and it just or hum. So I mean, it's a beautiful poem. It just it definitely unburdens the heart. And my I was thinking of what the metaphor means. Wine will rise to the top of oil. I'm thinking. I don't know if I'm kind of processing it right, but wine gives this sort of calming, heady feeling, whereas if you eat something oily, you get more lethargic. Is
Mhm.
that what is being referred, that when you hum, sort of the sattvic tendencies come to the top?
Well, I think that you've heard it in a way that we can all understand. I hadn't thought about it in that particular way myself. I had thought about it as more simple-mindedly, that wine, which is more, which is more, which do we want more? We're more likely to want wine than we are oil. So wine will rise to the top of oil. The good will come to the top of the not so good. But I like what you said, and I think it's very appropriate. Anything else from anyone about this one?
Well, now I'm just curious. I just had a question now. Did Ramakrishna or Vivekananda have any views on wine and alcohol in general?
Well, Sri Ramakrishna says, "I drink no ordinary wine." But as he uh, drove by in a carriage one time on his way somewhere, and drove by a tavern, and it was rather rowdy in the tavern. He cheered. He cheered them on. And one time, Brahmananda, his spiritual son, was walking in the streets with one of his disciples, and they saw another of Brahmananda's disciples literally drunk in the gutter. He was literally drunk down on the street. And the disciple made some sort of self-righteous noise about it. Oh, isn't that a shame what's happened to so-and-so? And Brahmananda didn't turn a hair. He simply said, oh, he's just backsliding a little. So, and then of course, one of Sri Ramakrishna's most famous disciples was a drunk, Girish Ghosh. And several of his other disciples had drinking issues as well. So what Sri Ramakrishna said about the world and its enjoyments was, it's best if you can renounce. It's best if you can let it all go and pursue the divine relationship, getting to know God. But he said to those gentlemen who came to him and said, tell us why we should not enjoy the world. He said, go enjoy the world. I have no objection. But when you are sick of it, return to me. I have the cure. Which is exactly what all of the great teachers tell us. They have the cure
Thank
when
you,
we're
brother.
sick of the world. So anybody else?
I just want to say real quickly before we move on. It's when I first read the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, it's what really attracted to me to Vedanta is the absolute zero judgment and shame, and just like the rational, like the reasoning is just like Sri Ramakrishna says, I have no objection to enjoying the world, but I have the cure when you're ready for it. There's no
Yeah.
shame or judgment in any wrongdoing.
If you even choose to see it as wrongdoing. Most of us act out of ignorance. So, Heidi, so good you're with us. I don't hear you.
Good evening. Sorry, I had some computer issues, so
Oh,
just
okay.
getting in, but glad to be here. Hello, everyone.
Good evening. Good evening. Bart, do you have the book open?
Yes, brother, I do.
Would you like to read the sanctuary for us?
Yes, yes. The sanctuary. It could be said that God's foot is so vast that this entire earth is but a field on his toe, and all the forest in this world came from the same root of just a single hair of his. What then is not a sanctuary? Where then can I not kneel and pray at a shrine made holy by his presence? The sanctuary. It could be said that God's foot is so vast that this entire earth is but a field on his toe, and all the forest in this world came from the same root of just a single hair of his. What then is not a sanctuary? Where then can I not kneel and pray at a shrine made holy by his presence? That's beautiful. That reminds me of, I can't remember the psalm number, but it's, I go to the top of the highest mountaintop and I find thee there. I go to the bottom of the sea and I find you there. There's no place to be outside of God's mercy or forgiveness, grace and love, and that's very beautiful.
Indeed, and it is the same message indeed.
Mm-hmm.
And all we have to do to understand this poem, at least at one level, is simply take seriously the words infinite and omnipresent.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, there is no place where that presence is not. If we don't take seriously words like infinite and omnipresent, then we've created a limitation that immediately makes it not possible for God to be God. It's just another kind of being, a super being, but nevertheless just a being. Anything else? And I just love the title of the poem, The Sanctuary.
Well, I just want to make a comment, Brother Shankara.
Yes, dear?
We always pray God in the house. We have a little shrine of our own in a corner somewhere in the room. My mother used to say, you don't have to always go to the temple to pray God. He's right within you. You could just pray right in the house.
Yes, oh yes.
Yes, and
As a matter of fact,
that's your sanctuary.
yes, and
We can,
at least the Ramakrishna order Swamis
yes,
tell you that that is what you will find most effective.
exactly.
The Ramakrishna order teachers say,
Because God is,
create a place in your house
yes,
that becomes your shrine, your sanctuary, and that's where you go when you wish to be more consciously in the present.
as long as we have faith and devotion, and we can find God everywhere, when inside us or outside us and everywhere in the universe. Thank you so much.
That is the premise, all right.
Brother Shankara,
Yes, dear.
So I think this poem pretty much takes away any excuse that anybody can give for not thinking about God, saying, oh, I can't go to the temple today, so I can pray or whatever. Also, I mean, there is something to be said for holy places too. I mean, when we come to the shrine, you know, the tanmatras are definitely uplifting and takes us to a different level. But at the same time, if we cannot, like this whole last year and a half, there was no excuse for not keeping up with our remembrance of God. This poem just basically takes away any excuse.
Yes, if indeed we need an excuse, this could take away any excuse. But God doesn't care about our. You know, this is really a truth. That God loves to have our attention, and is said to even revel in our relationship and interaction with her or him, but doesn't need it, or we don't need to provide any excuses for what we do or don't do. We have nothing to prove. As was said in that poem, Your Hair, Your Face. And it's said over and over in this book in one way or another. The Lord is head over heels in love with the creation that is constantly being made. It is constantly being made, changed, transformed. This love and innate creativity and love of creation and of things that are created is part of the divine. So we don't need any excuses. The more we join in, the more joyous we will be. Just hum a tune and see if the wine doesn't rise to the top. Anybody else?
That's beautiful, Brother Shankara. Yeah.
Thank you. I mean, there's a certain humor in just the first stanza of this. It could be said that God's foot is so vast that this entire earth is but a field on his toe. You know, again, this metaphor of God's foot is used by both Christian and non-Christian, people from other faith traditions. Anything else from anyone? What then is not a sanctuary? Where then can I not kneel and pray at a shrine made holy by his presence? Heidi, you feel like reading?
Yes, I'd be happy to read this next one.
Okay.
When someone I love is near, I know the vows the sun and the moon took. They are in love, but they don't touch. But why should I not let my face become lit before this earth when someone I cherish is near. When someone I love is near. I know the vows the sun and the moon took. They are in love, but they don't touch. But why should I not let my face become lit before this earth when someone I cherish is near?
Anybody?
Well, I have something to add to that, and
Please, Anshu.
I was just watching a documentary by Ram Dass, and he was, he was a hippie, but he turned into a religious and spiritual teacher later in his life, and he had the saying that one should love everyone and serve everyone and cherish everyone, no matter who they are. Um, and I've been really trying to do that. Like I've been trying to do that so hard recently, and it doesn't work all the time. Some people just annoy you, and I'm still working on it. I have a long way to go, but it just reminded me of when you said the word cherish. It just reminded me of what Ram Dass said.
Well, Ram Dass said what he said. One can believe from inner knowledge. He said that you should cherish, serve, love everyone because he saw the divine in them. But this is this wonderful poet saying, I know the vows the sun and moon took. They are in love, but they don't touch. But why should I not let my face become lit as their faces are lit before this earth when someone I cherish is near? So there's no reason that what is being said is there is every reason to exult in the love and that feeling of cherishing that one has for others. Just let that light shine from you. That's what's being said. And those people, if you stop and think, who are those people that you really like to be with? They're the ones who do this. Let their face light up when you come into their presence. Oh, there you are. And of course, Anshu, one has to discover the divine within oneself. Really discover it, uncover it, before we can have this attitude toward everyone we meet. And this is why forbearance is necessary.
You just took the word out of my mouth, Brother Shankar. I was just going to say that equanimity and forbearance are the most difficult ones in life to practice.
Yes.
It's like forgiveness. People had always asked me, how do you want me to forgive? The one is behaving so idiotic. I said, you are forgiving, sending the forgiving thoughts for your sake, not for the other's sake.
Exactly.
Once you understand that, it's easy. Your heart is lighter. And they will anyway behave the same way no matter where they go. But you won't be upset all the time. You are just calming yourself and liberating yourself. That is why the forgiveness is so important.
Yes, and
To
the
move
cherishing is so important.
Exactly. For us to move on, not to hold on to them. If you don't forgive, you're always holding on to the wrong people. You're always rubbing onto the wrong people's heart.
Right, right.
That secret is very difficult to practice. And, everybody always questioned me when I was working, how can you tell me to forgive that person who had exploited me? Yes. But if you don't forgive, you're attached to him, always attached to him or her. So just let it go. That is where they are at. Don't meet them where they are at. You rise above, like Jesus Christ. That's what my answer was.
Well, and your answer is such a practical one. It's
Exactly.
not for them, though
Yes.
they will benefit from it in ways that they don't even understand on the subtle level.
Yes.
But it's you who are freed by
You
forgiveness.
liberate yourself from all these attachments, attaching to the wrong people. Otherwise, you're attached the rest of your life, ruminating on it all the time.
Yes.
So thank you so much.
But I love these lines. But why should I not let my face become lit before this earth when someone I cherish is near? Yes, yes. It's so easy on this evening, for example. All of these people that are cherished are not so maybe physically near, but certainly emotionally and sensibly near.
And I'm not saying it's easy. It's a practice every day, like a meditation practice. You just have to do it regularly, the same thing. I have to forgive, let it go. That's the same thing as meditation. How much we have turbulences and when you meditate, and we slowly get to that concentration.
Yes, we and we get to the point where our face lights up.
Yes. Thank you.
That's the point of this particular poem, is that when we let our face light up, something magical happens.
Brother Shankara, what I have been finding more useful is your, your teachings to watch the thoughts and release. Because if I tell myself, oh, I have to forgive, even if it is for myself, it is hard. But if I say, okay, I'm upset, I'm annoyed, and I watch the thoughts and then accept that and then release it, that seems to work more. That have to sometimes makes it more of a fight.
Yes. Well, if we impose shoulds on ourselves, if we say I should do this or I should do that, then we're going to have that fight. But if we say no, the way for me to enjoy myself and be free is to do this, as you just pointed out, then we are. And as you noted, we really benefit by the ability to watch our thoughts and see what it is that's arising. And then oftentimes we just become funny to ourselves. We laugh along with ourselves, at ourselves, because we do dumb stuff. We just do dumb stuff because we abide in ignorance. When we finish abiding in ignorance, we'll be illumined. So
Something I heard, I don't remember where, in one of the talks or something, to remember that when I get annoyed with somebody, to center myself and say, well, somebody is going to be annoyed with me. So there's somebody out there who's going to be annoyed with me. So it's, you know, it's just a cycle. So get out of the cycle.
Yeah, do the best you can to get out of the cycle. So here comes one of the sermon poems, if you will, of Saint Catherine of Siena. A peasant before a king. If I did not understand the glory and sufferings of the human heart, I would not speak before its holiness. Like a peasant called before a great king, when all of his court is assembled, that is how I stand before every woman and man. How is it that God seeks our counsel whenever a voice or face asks of us? I'm sorry. How is it that God seeks our counsel whenever a voice or face asks of us? What a sweet divine game he plays. I stand with humility before every creature when they call me into the court, because of your holiness, my dears. Now this is so moving a poem. A peasant before a king. If I did not understand the glory and sufferings of the human heart, I would not speak before its holiness. Like a peasant called before a great king, when all of his court is assembled, that is how I stand before every woman and man. How is it that God seeks our counsel whenever a voice or face asks of us? What a sweet divine game he plays. I stand with humility before every creature when they call me into their court, because of your holiness, my dears. This is seeing every other human being from her experience, not her reasoning, her experience, seeing every other human being as the divine person. How is it that God seeks our counsel whenever a voice or face asks of us? What a sweet divine game he plays. Anything else from anyone about this one? And June, if you feel like piping up, now might be a nice time. Sharda, can you see if June is muted?
She is. June, you are muted in case you're trying to speak. You need to unmute.
She may not be able to
Yeah.
find her way to unmute it.
Did that do it?
That did it! Yay! All right. So, June, just an invitation, not a demand in any way, but just an invitation. Anything that you would like to say about this poem?
That little insert about a game. Will you read that to me again?
Yes. Well, first, she says, Catherine says, like a peasant called before a great king, when all of his court is assembled. That is how I stand before every woman and man. And then she says, then she asks the question, how is it that God seeks our counsel whenever a voice or face asks of us? What a sweet, divine game he plays. I stand with humility before every creature when they call me into their court because of your holiness, my dears. Because of your holiness, my dear.
Really overwhelmed.
What is it about it that is overwhelming, June?
That God would consider our counsel.
Well, what Catherine seems to be saying is that every human being is the divine person.
Exactly.
And so when someone asks of us, and it's just so revelatory that she says, not only by voice, but just by how their face appears, just what shows on their face. And so this is why I suspect Saint Francis said that when we're in the presence of other people who have these looks on their faces, a kind face is a precious gift. That face that is lit up. Thank you, June.
I'm sorry. I
Sorry for what, dear?
I think I really need to um, give that all my energy and really just be in contemplation with God. That poem places a great deal of responsibility on us.
If we choose to accept it.
Of course.
You know, there's no should. There's no dogma. If we choose to be this way with other people, it does put a great responsibility on us. It's true. But there's no way of pretending to be in this kind of relationship with people. We can take a stand for it. We can try to be that, but not tell ourselves that we know it, just that we believe it and we take it on faith because such as St. Catherine say it. And that's what Swayam was pointing to earlier, and what Haima was pointing to earlier, about this dance we do, with not with others so much, but first with ourselves.
Yes.
So that we put our priorities straight.
When we put our priorities straight, and when we listen and pray, for answers, I think answers come in many forms. And I fully expect that God does provide cues for us. And I'm wondering if that's what she means, St. Catherine.
What she means by what, June, just so we understand fully.
That that we are in counsel with God.
Yes.
It's a new idea to me.
Well, it's so beautiful how she says it. Like a peasant called before a great king.
Yes.
When all of his court is assembled. How awesome is that? A peasant called before a great king when all of his court is assembled. That is how I stand before every woman and man. What an incredible statement. And yet you can believe she means it.
And in humility,
Yes.
that's the cue, I think,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to humble enough or totally.
And that's why the next lines are such, as you say, a cue. How is it that God seeks our counsel whenever a voice or face asks of us? This great king, seated within each of these who are asking of us. And then, of course, she says, I stand with humility before every creature. Notice she doesn't even just say human being. Every creature, when they call me into their court, because of your holiness, my dears. Which, of
Yes,
course, I'm sorry, June, go right ahead.
that's an important cause because of their holiness.
Yes. Well, I said this is one of her sermon poems, and certainly this sermon has stirred some response in us. Anything else from anyone? This is precious.
Yes, it is.
I can make a comment, Brother Shankar, since nobody is saying anything. I understand from St. Catherine's point of view, if we cannot understand the happiness of when we cannot be joyful when others are joyous, and we cannot cry when others are crying, and it's very difficult to speak before its holiness. That's how I understood it. We have to be human. In order to be human, we should be able to smile with people who are smiling and happy. We should be able to cry when others are crying. And that is what makes me a human being. This is how I understand it. It makes me more human. So when I pray, my heart is so lighter and I can easily concentrate in front of my holiness. That's what in hundreds of years ago, she was already illuminated from birth. She could see without readings like these, without reading Bhagavad Gita or anything. She was already knew how to be a human, really, really human from the core of her heart. And that's why she was so freed and be able to speak to God and sees God in every human being. That's what she said, because of your holiness, my dears, because everyone has the holiness in their hearts. That's how
As you said, their joy
yes,
and their tears. And that's how she opens the poem.
exactly. We need to
If
be,
I did not understand the glory
yes,
and sufferings
of-
of the human heart, if I did not understand,
yes,
what a statement to make. If
very,
I did not understand the glory and sufferings of the human heart, I would not speak before its holiness.
exactly, very powerful statement. Just the first stanza itself is so powerful.
Well, it's just as you said.
Yes,
She's able to share,
she was. She was.
and not like in some simple-minded fashion, but from the depths of her being, share their glory and their sufferings. That's what she means by
That's
understanding.
very important. From the core of bottom of your heart, you have to be able to do those glory and sufferings of others, share those two things to make a full, whole human being. I think that's what she means to me.
Yes.
That's how I understood. Thank you so much for your elaborating on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jaime. Anyone else? Heidi, I'd just like to invite you to say something, not a demand, just an invitation. You've been quiet this evening. Just wondering how you're feeling and how all this is registering with you.
Oh, I'm just taking it in. Yeah, I mean, that first stanza is, during her biography, at the very beginning is what's
Right.
stated under there. So, yeah, I don't really have anything to say. I'm just taking it in and glad to be here. So,
Well,
I'm good.
That's yes, and we're glad to have you here. So it's a little after 9. Anything else from anyone? Anything to add? Anything to ask? Earlier, Anshu brought up the non-dual point of view. The non-dual point of view is that we are, each and every one of us, the divine being, which she points to here. That there is no separation. The separation is a superimposition brought about by our ignorance, which is this divine game that St. Catherine is speaking of. This game of there seeming to be a court, there seeming to be this feeling of a peasant before a king. And the only way that can be understood from here is that this is because the divine, as we are that, the divine enjoys this experience of manyness, this experience of not being fully aware of the full truth all at once, but discovering it, uncovering it. And so the great ones say, "Come to me, all you who are burdened and heavy laden, and I shall give you rest. My yoke is easy, my burden is light." Because when we come to understand, even a little, when we come to understand the truth of our being, it fills us with joy and awe and this sense of holiness that she talks about. So, dearly beloved ones, may you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be cheerful. May you have peace of mind. And go forward in the loving and protective embrace of that holy presence. Until we see you next time, that's the prayer. Anything else? Any final thoughts from anyone?
Thank you, Shankar.
Thank you, June, for everything you said this evening. Thank you for being with us. And for all of you who contributed, all of you who shared. This is how we do this together. And it's so much more fun than doing it alone. So, good night, everyone. Until next time,
Thank you, Brother Shankara. Thanks, everybody.
good
Thank
night.
you. Good night.
Night, everyone.
Good night. Good night.
Night.